Okay, so going now to Opposition Leader Peter Dutton, who's speaking in Victoria here.
As the Transport Minister or the Shadow Transport Minister, I presume the Prime Minister is going to answer questions about that.
Your declaration of interest shows about 15 different flights from various airlines over the years. Isn't this just part of being a politician?
No, there are strange arrangements when you can pick the phone up to the CEO and ask as the Transport Minister for an upgrade to your arrangements. I mean, that's what's happened here. If you go to the airport and either for load factors or, for decision the airline makes otherwise, for them to upgrade you and you declare that, well, that's perfectly appropriate, and that's as the rules apply equally to everyone. But if you're the Transport Minister and you're picking up the phone to one of the most important stakeholders in your portfolio asking for a free upgrade, then again, I think the Prime Minister would be able to answer those questions more effectively than anyone else, because I'm not aware of anyone else having done it. Yeah.
Those upgrades come back?
Well, as I say, generally you arrive at the airport and there's an upgrade of a seat available, and that's generally, as I understand it, how it happens. But I've been in Parliament since 2001, and you say, what, there are 15 upgrades since then. I take about, I stand to be corrected here, but I'll probably do about 190 flights this year. I prefer to be doing none at all, actually, but I'm here in Melbourne today very happily. I'm off to Perth shortly, and we go from one side of the country to the other. So I average probably 180, 190, 200 flights a year, and you're saying there have been 15 upgrades over 23 years, none of which happened when I was the Transport Minister, because I haven't been the Transport Minister, and none of which happened as a result of me calling my best friend, Allan Joyce, at Qantas.
You never asked for them for your desk, they were just offered to you?
They're offered, and when the booking's made, again, I mean, I suspect that generally for load factors that you get upgraded. So that's how it works. Well, it's nice of you to point it out, and I could lose a few kilos, but I think it's more the airline load, the passenger load, if you like. How many people are on the plane in different cabins? I think that's generally what they do. Yes. Sure.
What are the lessons to be learned from this?
Well, the lessons are that if you treat people with contempt, if you run up huge debt, you mismanage the economy, you create a cost of living crisis, you can expect for the electorate to punish you, and that's exactly what happened in Queensland. I think it's what's going to happen at a federal level as well, because the Prime Minister has promised a lot for Australians and he's delivered nothing. He was distracted by The Voice for the first 16 months. He spent $450 million, and in those early budgets, when they should have been making decisions to protect us against what was coming down the line in the economy, they just didn't make those decisions that were necessary. Now they're talking about massive extra debt, and that's going to result in higher inflation or interest rates staying higher for longer. And I think that's what happens when you get a long-term Labor government. In Victoria here, the Allan government is destroying the Victorian economy, and Victorian businesses and families and small, cafes and other micro businesses are really suffering here in Victoria at the moment as well, and that's what Labor governments do, unfortunately.
So what confidence do you take from this big swing against you?
Well, I think the swing is a reflection of David Crisafulli's skill and his preparedness to run a good campaign and to be seen as a credible alternative premier. I think it's also a reflection of the fact that it was a very bad Labor government. People say that Stephen Miles ran a good opposition, but he ran a terrible government. And that's exactly what's happening at a federal level now. The Labor Party and the union movement are good at campaigning. Anthony Albanese is a good brawler. He hates Tories, as he says. But the fact is that he's a bad Prime Minister. And being a bad Prime Minister is not what our country needs right now, because we need to get our economy back on track. Interest rates have already come down in the United States, in Canada, in New Zealand, and in the UK. And they should have come down here already. And families are struggling with their bills because interest rates have gone up 12 times under this Prime Minister.
On the nuclear issue, David Crisafulli on ABC News Breakfast this morning said it was a no before the election, it's still a no. How are you going to convince LNP in Queensland to
Well, look,
change their stance?
I respect that that's David's position. It's been long-standing, and I knew it before the election, and I know it now. It's the same with Peter Malinauskas, but same with Chris Minns. But I think you can have a conversation with sensible premiers, and I'd put the three of them in that category. Peter Malinauskas is the champion of the nuclear submarine in South Australia because it's a zero-emissions technology. It's safe, or Labor wouldn't have signed up to it. And I think the question that we really need to ask ourselves now is, why is Anthony Albanese standing in the way of a bipartisan position on nuclear energy, which would be zero emissions? It would provide stability of electricity, and it would also make us internationally competitive. If you look at where this country is going to be over the next generation, the decision we're making around nuclear energy to firm up that intermittent power, I mean, it's an overcast day today. We're not getting the yield out of solar panels that we would on a sunny day. But businesses need solar as much as they do a base load, because they need to run their cold rooms 24/7. And so our investment into nuclear is about this generation, it's about next generation. Look at what's happening in the United States at the moment in AI and in data storage. Google, Oracle, Apple, they're all in conversations with nuclear power providers. The Australian government's not. And I want to see our economy grow, not shrink. In Victoria at the moment here, the Allan government's talking about importing gas to keep the lights on, and they're wondering why businesses are closing or moving to South Australia. So let's have a mature conversation. The issues that people raise around timing, all of that can be resolved if Anthony Albanese stands up in a bipartisan way, supports our position on nuclear, and that would give certainty around investment and the future supply of energy at a cheaper price in our country. But at the moment, he's playing this childlike game, and unfortunately, we're going to continue to see increases in electricity prices under Labor's hapless policy. I just don't think our country can afford 3 more years of Anthony Albanese or Labor. But the state premiers were opposed to nuclear submarines, remember? Labor wasn't in favour of nuclear submarines. Now we got it. No, but it's exactly the same technology. So the reactor is exactly the same technology. That's what generates the power on the submarine, and that's what propels the submarine, and that's exactly what happens in small modular reactors. It's what happens in the larger reactors. It's why Labor in the United Kingdom is signing up to more nuclear. It's why Labor in France is signing up to more nuclear. It's why Labor in Canada is signing up to more nuclear. Okay, we can't believe that Chris Bowen has the answers that those countries don't have. And so I just want to make sure that we can reduce power prices. Anthony Albanese is promising to increase them. I want to make sure that we can have stable electricity and gas supply. Anthony Albanese, as the energy regulator is pointing out, has a system of renewables only, which is going to disrupt supply. And that is not good for our economy. Well, as we did on the nuclear submarines, see, Labor wasn't in favour of nuclear submarines, and now we have a bipartisan position on nuclear submarines. And we negotiated, and that's exactly what we will do. There would be a bipartisan position if Anthony Albanese signed up to nuclear power. And what is the reason that Anthony Albanese is opposed to nuclear power? It's not on safety, because he's decided to put our sailors, our submariners, on the nuclear submarine. So the Prime Minister is not concerned with safety. He's not concerned with disposal of waste, because he's signed up to disposal of waste under the AUKUS agreement. He's not. What is Anthony Albanese's argument against nuclear? It's just political, and he's putting our economy at risk. If we don't get the energy picture right, people's power prices are going to continue to go through the roof. Businesses won't manufacture here in Australia. We've had a 3-fold increase in manufacturing closures over the last 2 years under this government, and our economy can't afford another 3 years of Anthony Albanese. Well, I think, as he's pointed out through the course of the campaign, David Crisafulli's got many concerns about what's happened in Queensland, as is the case here in Victoria. The Allan government here in Victoria is killing the economy, and families are deeply concerned, whether it's in Queensland or whether it's in Victoria or New South Wales, deeply, deeply concerned about Labor's mismanagement of the economy. And that's why the housing policy, $5 billion to get the roadblocks out of the way, is not something the Prime Minister is committed to doing, not something that Jacinta Allan is committed to doing, but we are, because we want to create 500,000 new homes, and we want to make sure that people, young people in particular, can realise the dream of home ownership again.